This is the Gulf in the Middle East. It's the main flashpoint between Iran and the United States and its regional allies. 1/5 of the world's oil supply flows through the Strait of Hormuz, a crucial energy choke point and a battlefield. The US has accused Iran of attacks on oil tankers, shooting down an American drone, and striking Saudi Arabia's main oil facility. This is a high-risk game that could lead to a wider escalation across the whole Middle East. So how did we get here? The escalation began in 2018, when the US unilaterally withdrew from the Iran nuclear accord. This agreement, which had been ratified by the UN Security Council, gave Tehran relief from many sanctions in return for strict monitoring of a constrained civilian Iranian nuclear program. President Trump said it was a horrible deal and adopted a much more aggressive policy toward Tehran. He tweeted that if Iran threatened or fought the United States, it would be the official end of Iran. Iran's 81 million people and its leaders soon faced what President Trump called a campaign of maximum pressure. The US stamped more than 1,000 different sanctions on Iran's oil exports, banks and financial transactions, trade, shipping, insurance, and the country's political and military leadership. Iran's oil exports fell drastically, putting its economy in dire straits. For Washington, this maximum pressure was meant to force Iran to accept US terms in a new, wider deal, or face the collapse of its economy or even its regime. Has the American gamble worked? Not really. President Trump wanted to make Iran more submissive, but his strategy had the opposite effect. Iran began to retaliate. Tehran breached the Iran deal's limits on its nuclear program. It broke through the limit on the low-enriched uranium it was allowed to stockpile under the deal. This is still far from the 1,500 kilos and the 90% enrichment needed for producing a nuclear weapon. But Iran's growing stock of enriched uranium is raising fears that Tehran could be getting closer to having the capability to dash toward nuclear weapons. Tehran has also started to fuel tensions in the region by activating its proxies and allies on many fronts. In Yemen, the US and Iran are on opposite sides of a war between Houthi rebels and a Saudi-led coalition that has devastated the country. In Iraq, a shared US and Iranian interest in stability is giving way to a struggle for influence that could destabilize the government and the country. And in Syria, Israel and Iran are engaged in high-stakes, tit-for-tat attacks that could draw in Lebanon. Both sides say they don't want a war, but that's no guarantee against stumbling into one. Indirect, interconnected confrontations involving US and Iranian allies are already multiplying across the region. Any miscalculation could draw Tehran and Washington into a direct face-off that neither of them really wants. There is a way out of this cycle of tension and escalation. Except the US, all of the signatories of the former Iran deal are still committed to a diplomatic solution to this crisis. The US and Iran can start by first freezing and then de-escalating their dispute. For Washington, it means lifting sanctions and providing Iran some relief from its economic siege. For Iran, it means ending its violations of the nuclear deal and stopping provocations in the region. For the EU, it means restoring trade with Iran. For all sides, it means pulling back from military provocations in the Gulf. President Trump and Rouhani could then agree to negotiate a deal that works for both of them. Once the US and Iran agree to move forward, the signatories of the original nuclear accord could sign a new Iran deal. Better for the US and better for Iran. That would make the Middle East and the world a safer place.